What do you want to wait for? Lights on. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The purpose of the meeting is to hold a public hearing for the Dream Island Bridge final assessment. And at that point, I'm going to turn it over to the city administrator.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Just a quick review on the mailing of the publication, the assessment for this project. Notice of this hearing was mailed to the impacted property owners on September 14th of this year. It was published twice in the Northland Press, one on the 19th of September and one publication on the 26th. The city has received 4 letters from 4 property owners on Dream Island Lane that are requesting that all parcels on Dream Island Lane be excluded from any assessments related to this project. So with that, I'll ask Dave Reese, our city engineer in this project, to review the project costs and the assessment role. Dave?
All right. Thank you, Mike, City Council. As it's been said, the purpose of this meeting is to hear upon the project costs and assessment for the Dream Island Bridge project. So the City Council at a certain point beyond my presentation will be taking your comments, and we'd ask that you come up to the podium so that your comments can be recorded, and the council will take them into consideration when considering adopting the assessment role that's been prepared. The first thing that I'd like to do is look at project costs summary. If you recall, this project started back in 2015 with a feasibility study, and there were many different bridge options that were reviewed, all with the intent to apply to the state for local bridge improvement funds. The final outcome of that was to select a bridge option that involved concrete beam design, and the estimated project costs back in 2015 for that project were provided, and an estimated assessable cost of $80,000 was determined at that time. We were looking at assessing that across 37 lots on the island, and the estimated assessment at that time was about $1,081. The project, as you may be fully aware now, is under construction. The contract's been awarded, and we're using some estimated costs here to develop the assessment numbers, but it's the best information that we have available. We have an actual bid from the contractor, and that bid is $465,787.25. That's their bid. It's a unit price bid, so you know the material quantities fluctuate a little bit with the amount of gravel that ultimately gets used, that sort of thing. So, but that's the base bid amount that the project was awarded upon. Shortly after construction, getting into building the bypass road, the elevation of the pool elevation of the reservoir is about a foot higher than it was in 2015 when the project plans were prepared, and that required more fill for the bypass road, both putting it in and taking it out. So a work order was prepared for Redstone Construction, and that is an estimated amount of $13,905 based on the construction costs involved. And so we're looking at a construction cost of about $479,000. The engineering and testing costs are estimated at this point at that number based on the best available information we have at this point. Also, the right-of-way We have one property that's been settled and one property that hasn't. That's our best estimate at this time for the right-of-way cost and the costs that the city's incurred in acquiring those permanent and temporary easements. And so we're looking at a total project cost of about $733,800. That's total A. Then we look at the funding side of the picture, and the amount of the local bridge replacement funds that were finally allocated in 2017 was higher than we'd estimated in 2015, but it corresponds with the bids that the city received. It was actually increased up to $619,927. The local share of engineering and construction, as provided by the statute, is to commit $10,000 toward the engineering, $10,000 toward the construction, and so that the funding side of the picture is $639,927. Subtracting that amount from our total ends up with a local share, assessable share of $93,905. The city's policy is to split that 50-50 with 50% assessed. So the assessment amount would be $46,952.60. Initially, as you looked above here, we'd looked at back in 2015 just assessing 37 lots on the island. Here we're looking at assessing 45 lots, and the lots that are proposed to be assessed in this assessment roll includes all the ones I've shaded on the island in orange. There are a few lots that are tied in ownership with buildings straddling the lot lines. This is a lot that appears to have been split and is in ownership with the adjacent properties. So we're just assessing one of these. We're not assessing a half lot in this instance. So that results in 37 total lots on the island. And then part of the agreements with the adjacent property owners here, where we're acquiring the right-of-way through right-of-way negotiation, is to forego assessments of those properties as part of the negotiation for acquiring the right-of-way. And so we're not assessing these two properties, and we're not proposing to assess Dream Island Lane, which does not have any direct benefit that we can see. We are looking at assessing the 8 lots proceeding from this first lot to this point, to the Entomoa Beach Trail. And basically, we're looking at a total of 45 lots then, with the 37 on the island and the 8 off-island lots receiving the benefit of these improvements through all of the hearings that we've had, and you know, the style and type of bridge that was ultimately chosen. And so going back to the cost sheet, when we look at dividing the 50% of the total local cost by 45, we end up with a lot assessment of $1,043.39. Now, the City Council has determined the period and interest rate that would be applied to that principal amount, a period of 5 years over which this cost could be paid back at a rate of 4%. and that would result in an annual payment of $235.84. By statute, if adopted, this assessment roll is payable by each property owner within 30 days after adoption of the assessment roll to avoid any of the interest charges. Otherwise, the interest would be applied on an annual basis over the next 5 years at the stated amount, $235.84. Okay? I believe that concludes what I had to say about the project costs. If the city council members have any specific questions, I'd take those to answer. And then you may want to turn it over to the public for their comments.
Mike, is this the time to talk about that or no?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is, let's go ahead and take the public comments, which is item 4 on our agenda. And then item 5, after you have the public comments, then the council can
Okay.
weigh in on their thoughts.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open it up to the public, and any person wishing to comment on the proposed assessment must come to the microphone, state their name and address.
My name is Rich Hoppy, live at 37931 Dream Island Road. I'm happy to see you included Moon Beach since they were so adamant about paying their fair share. My question is this finished or is this negotiable again?
That's a question for Dave.
The answer would be after receiving all of the public comment tonight, the city council would take that into consideration and either adopt the assessment roll as prepared by staff or request that we modify it. So that's where it sits tonight at this very moment. They'll either accept it, you can accept it tonight, and a resolution has been prepared for you to adopt it tonight, or you could pass it on to the next council meeting.
So if you change the formula, how will we be notified?
Well, I can maybe answer that. We can't, to be honest, we can't raise right now it's proposed 1,043.39 and there's 45 people. If it goes up, or if they say, let's take off these 10 or whatever the math is, we can't make the assessment more than that number.
1,043?
Well, maybe 1,081, however it was first noticed, without having another hearing and starting over. Because people were given a notice based on this math,
Right.
and so they wouldn't have had a proper chance to come and complain if we redo the formula and now all of a sudden it's 1,200 a person or something like
Who
that.
would complain? Okay, so what you're saying is it probably won't go up, but it might, and if it does, there'll be another hearing?
It can't
or-
go up without another hearing. It could go down,
Well,
but
that's
it's
okay.
most likely either take it or leave it is the most likely scenario.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I have is sort of policy. I came to the Public Works Committee meeting in September, I think that's after Labor Day, and there was quite a bit of conversation then about some road repairs they were doing. And the question that came up was, I don't recall where the road was, but there was a road that they were going to repair from point X to point Y where the road ran and then stopped. And then there were some homeowners beyond that, wanted the road extended. And that must have been a private road or something else. And the commentary at that point was, the city will only repair current roads at no assessment to the homeowners, but beyond that point, they would assess the homeowners. So my question is, this road's been here for 50 years or more, as is Bridge, so why are we getting assessed to repair the road that's been there for 50 years?
I don't know, I can too, but go ahead.
Well, Most cities follow a policy of assessing improvements after a certain point of useful life has been reached, and a road or a bridge, whatever public infrastructure it may be, eventually reaches its point of having to be replaced in its entirety. And this bridge and the approaches are at that point. They've fully served a useful life, and then some. And the city's policy is to assess 50% of the replacement cost. That's the city's policy.
And we do have one prior example of a
Right.
bridge in the city, right, that we did
Where
this.
that's been applied.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if the bridge across Daggett Creek was determined to be at the end of its life, and you replace it, you'd assess 10 homes and businesses to the north and south of it, or you assessed everybody north of it, or everybody south of it, or you just eat the cost?
That's county, isn't it?
Well, yeah, first, I mean, the first answer is if we choose, you know, if it's a city project is one answer, maybe not, maybe it is. If it is a city project, who's benefited? That's what Dave wanted a little bit of analysis. Every project's different. Obviously, if you're on the island, you can't get to it unless you have a bridge. So that seems pretty obvious to me. But other ones might be benefited because I remember some of the meetings, you know, the channel getting into that backwater was being built up with sludge over the years, and this bridge would change that and potentially impact those people. On Daggett Brook or wherever you're talking, I mean, it's going to be different every case. When we did the last bridge, I'm sure there was other talk about just island, or maybe some people will buy the island. You got to look at the facts of each case. They're all different.
The people that benefit by the bridge being there, everybody drives over it. It's not just the residents. Yeah, we use it, we have to have it. But there's probably a third of the traffic, people coming down, looking around, making a U-turn and leaving.
No, any city, any road in town, that's the same argument. Typically, the people that are assessed on a road are the ones that abut it. But Anchor Point, for example, I don't live on that anymore, but to your point, I drive and see friends once in a while. Nobody assessed me. I mean, that's any road in town. I mean, so you have to have some
Except this
methodology.
one.
No, on this one, we mainly assess people that are very close to the project. We didn't assess the other 30% that use it sporadically, but they don't live there.
So it's a public road that most of the residents pay the cost, pay this assessed cost of, and everybody else doesn't.
Well, you're paying a very small fraction of the
No,
overall cost, yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm arguing the principle. You know, if it's a road that wears out, you replace it, no assessment. If it's a bridge that wears out, well, let's see.
Well, today's point,
Maybe it's,
yeah.
we should assess them, maybe we shouldn't, maybe,
To Dave's point, the great majority of towns do assess on replacing roads. Cross Lake is unique. That's their current policy, not to assess, you know, for repaving. That could change tomorrow. I mean, policies are modified all the time. But in general, even though other people use it, when you live in front of a road and it needs to get redone, the great majority of areas in the state, you know, the people that live next to it bear a bigger burden of that cost than the overall city.
Years ago, Brad, did they assess people who lived on the road, and then they quit doing it for a while?
Are you talking Cross Lake specifically?
Cross Lake, yeah.
I'm not the best historian probably of the town of Cross Lake.
I
I'm
used to live
talking
on
more
Wilderness
state law.
Trail, and when they blacktopped and improved that road, each owner was assessed a significant part of that road.
That's the normal way of doing things. I've heard lately there's been a position that we're going to try to have that be a overall city cost for repaving, but that could change. That's not normal. Doesn't make it wrong. Most cities assess anytime you do a city project, whether it's a brand-new road or
But I
a...
think we used to, and then we quit doing it, and now we're looking at doing it again, just because of the cost of it.
Somebody's got to pay for it. It's
Yeah,
whether you...
it's either tax increase, or
Yeah.
we charge the people that use it, so.
all right. Back to my first question. So the 1,043 is pretty much set unless you hear some compelling argument tonight that you ought to change it, and then there'll be another meeting to this.
Yeah, for example, if the council decides the 8 that aren't on the island should not be assessed, the next question is, who's paying that? Is the city going to eat that? Because you couldn't just reassess it to everybody else, because it'd be over the amount that we noticed, so we'd have to start over again.
Okay.
It couldn't be done tonight. We'd have to redo the whole thing.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess I'd just ask you to keep in mind that last year during city council meetings, Public Works Committee meetings, there were 4 or 5 from Mullen Beach that were adamant about a 50-foot bridge or a 130-foot bridge, and they were willing to pay their fair share for the beauty of it. Pardon the sarcasm. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Karen Frederick. I live at 37698 Mullen Beach Trail. And I guess, Mr. Hoppy, you could say I am one of the adamant, along with the other neighbors who unfortunately are not here tonight. They all work in the cities. But we had said, yes, if the city put in a bridge that gave us something better to look at than what we have had to look at, in our case, my husband and I, 40 years now, we have owned our property back there. And it was discouraging when we found out that when the bridge needed to be replaced, the DNR did not step forward and say that the bridge that was put in the 50s was obviously against the DNR and filling in the waterway. And so we had agreed that we have to look at it. We may not have to cross it all the time, other than when we go over to see some of our friends who are there, but that we see it 24/7. And I'm sure you would all agree, those of you that have looked at it, it's very pathetic. But as of today, we've been monitoring it and taking pictures and videos. If you went over there and you could see and smell the stench, the creosote, it would make you gag to think of some of the filth and everything, the debris and stuff that is there. We're not arguing paying our share. I don't have a problem paying my share for living up here. I don't have a problem with that. And what I have a problem with, and obviously it's already been resolved, is that you chose not to improve it as well as what we would have liked it to be. I can't speak for everyone else on Mullen Beach Trail, but I know that all of us, the 6 or 7 of us for sure, had all said, if you give us something that's going to create at least an opportunity for us to use the boats underneath back and forth like it originally had been, and you give us something other than what was originally thought of here approximately 5 years ago, and I know you know this, at one time you were thinking of doing a culvert. And that was met with huge protests. But yes, my husband and I are in agreement. However, there is one of the assessments on the assessment, if you homestead and if you're retired and live up here, you could probably be exempt from the assessment. I believe that was in the deferred.
Yeah,
Deferred.
difference.
Yeah, deferred, yeah, not,
Yeah.
yeah, deferred.
You can
Yeah.
delay the payment,
Delay it,
basically.
yeah.
Yep.
And so there's other options for us, or we'll just pay it all at one time.
If you qualify, you might be able to defer it, but,
Yeah.
you know,
But there were, I mean, there's opportunity. I don't know that anyone else on Mullen Beach Trail would be at that point. However, I am one of the adamant ones, and I know who all the adamants are. And if you give us a nice-looking bridge, and there's an opportunity for us to be able to go into the lake instead of having to go all the way around the island, we'll be thrilled, absolutely thrilled, even though it isn't what we wanted. But again, I'm only speaking for myself. Thanks for your time.
I'm Colin Willing, 15402 Dream Island Circle. I've been under the assumption we had a 50-foot bridge, okay? Whether you drive a boat through is one thing, but I was under the assumption that with a 50-foot bridge, you'd have more than a 17 or 18-foot waterway through there. Now, I don't care if you can drive a boat through there or not. The thing that I'm concerned about is that right now, they took out a bridge that had a 17-foot waterway. They're putting a 50-foot bridge in that's got the same waterway. Now, the whole idea, or part of the idea for this new bridge was to get water flow through that area. Well, you know, it seems like we're spending a lot of money to get nothing done. I realize the bridge probably needed repair, all this kind of stuff, but to lead everybody on to the fact that, you know, it would get more water flow through there is, you know, I just don't understand. You know, spend a lot of money for this bridge. You know, we could have just put a box culvert in, as far as everyone says, and done the same thing.
Where does the water come from that flows through the bridge?
Where
How much,
does it
how
come
much
from?
flow is in there?
It
Yeah.
comes from the river behind Wilderness.
So it comes, it hits a lake, it comes back around?
Well,
I know the lake very well, so I mean,
It
that's,
comes from both ways, from the river and from the lake itself.
I just don't know how much water actually flows under that bridge.
Well, I've been watching the water over there, and there is water flow over there. And with a 50-foot bridge, and you had like 30-foot waterway, I don't care how deep it is, but you needed the water flow. And there is flow over there, but, you know, the DNR says, no, there isn't flow. And back in 54, 55, before it was filled in, the depth of that area was anywhere from 2.5 to 4 foot. And now they say it's only 1.5 foot. Well, you know, that's just over time. But
So the old bridge was 17 feet from post to post? That's what the
about
clear?
that, right.
Well, maybe a couple of points. I mean, Dave could speak to, obviously, the width of it's not the only relevant factor, it's the depth and how you dredge it. And
I don't care.
but-
The width doesn't bother me.
But the point of the meeting tonight, though, is not even about, I mean, we've already designed the bridge and had umpteen
Yeah.
meetings. That discussion's done.
Right, I understand that part of
The
it
one,
also.
the one thing that's confusing, though, is, and I think a couple of you now hit on it, they're all different, but normally the project is done before we have the assessment hearing, but we had to kind of, timing in this case, we had to wait till the end of the year because Dave was trying to secure state funding, and then we had to hurry up and scramble and get some easements in place, so we couldn't start until towards the end of the year. And if we don't do this assessment hearing by November, we can't assess it next year, and we have to wait an entire year. And the city would have to carry all those costs. So we're trying to hold it now, even though it's not quite done. It was just awkward timing. So I hope it turns out to be a pretty bridge. We don't know right now because it's not done. I think it will have better water flow based on I'm not an engineer, based on what I heard other meetings, but tonight's all about the money. That's all this is about. We're not designing,
Yeah.
the bridge design's done. I hope you guys like it. I hope it's better than the last one. But this is just about, here's the numbers, here's your chance to complain about 1,043, or say, we're adamantly in favor of it.
1,043 for the same basic bridge is a little outrageous.
Well, even if it's the exact same bridge, at least it's brand new and not going to fall down in the next 5 years, I think is the point. But,
Well, right, I can see the safety point. But, you know, there again, the 1,050 is a lot of money that's wasted money. And the 5,000 or 500,000 to build it, you know? So, I don't know.
I can speak to that if you want me to.
Dave, have you got any comments? This is time for the is there anybody else out there that wants to speak? If not, Dave, have you got any questions?
No, is this the question, comment?
Yes.
Part? I just want to question the $13,905 change, Dave. Could you talk to me about that?
Okay.
I, like always, have a little bit of an issue with it, and we're just getting the thing started, and there's one in.
Right. So, back when, here, I'll put this plan up here. So this is the plan that we had to get completed and submitted to the state to get in the queue for funding. And yeah, when this plan was put together, we had a benchmark elevation of the waterway.
1235?
That's our benchmark right there. But relative to water elevation, I'm looking for that.
So is 1235 the top of the deck on the bridge? Is that where it's going to
No,
be?
That's just our benchmark. Let me,
Here, maybe if I could interject while Dave's trying to find some more facts. First of all, to make it clear to the council and the public, this is our final chance as to the first questions we had. It's gonna, if we approve this, it's gonna be that 1,000, whatever the number was, it's not in front of me anymore.
Right.
Per person. If we get 17 more change orders, that's all council, general city expense. We're not gonna come back and try to reassess. Okay, so we're bearing that risk because the project's not done yet. And you've not even, I don't think anyway, approved that change order, and there might be 2 more, and you might approve, you might deny, you might complain.
Well,
It's
we're
not gonna-
building it into the calculation of the money, though.
But it's an assumption, and the assessment's based on assumptions. We'll have, it's not done yet. The contract's going to get amended potentially 3 more times after this assessment hearing is over. So to your point, it's, if you do the formula, it might change the assessment about 12 cents per person. If you do all the math with the state funding and all that, it literally would change at 12 cents, I bet, if you did the math. But that doesn't mean you agree with the change order. That's a different meeting. This is just about the assessment. Whether you think it's an appropriate change order on that one, or we might get 3 more before the bridge is finished, that's at a general council meeting. And whether you approve or deny or argue, you still have the right to do that. This is just,
So this is not part of what we're authorizing, on that sheet you got?
Correct.
yeah, you're not authorizing that, you're authorizing the assessment amount that we're proposing.
Okay.
tonight's hearing is just about how much we're going to assess each
At some
person.
point in time, I'd like to do that. Maybe tonight's not the
No,
time.
and I think you should, but if you want to, but just like, Dave put in the assumption, we're gonna have X dollars for acquisition costs, we haven't finished that yet. And you're not approving that $60,000 number, that's just an assumption. It might change based on final numbers we reach.
Right, but that's not going to affect the assessment that we're doing.
Well, it all affects how we came up
This
with a
one.
number of 1,043, just like the 13,000, just like the 60,000, just like the assumed facts, some of which we don't know, to come up with all we're voting on is assess everybody 1,043, that cannot change. Even if in fact, we don't spend 60,000.
But we started at 80,000, now we're at 93,905, and the 13,905 increase is because of the change order that's there. And that's what I'm questioning, and maybe now is not the time to do it.
Well, we're not
But that
approving
is
that.
the math that comes up with the figure
does.
that everybody.
If you do the formula with the state, it will change that assessment very, very, very little, but you're not saying you approve that change order not tonight, that's not tonight's meeting.
Okay.
It's just helping you understand how we got to the number, just like that 60 is a placeholder. That's a best guess, because we're not done with the project. That's why, back to timing here, normally he has a chance to get final numbers, and we got hard math. And then we can say it's exactly this, and this is what, now that 60 might turn into 79,000 for acquisition costs. That 19,000 extra is going to be a city expense because we don't have a chance to assess it to landowners. Or that change order of 13,000 or whatever, there might be 3 more. You might try to deny them, but they might present 3 more. Those are all going to be city costs because we can't assess them. This is a final assessment hearing.
Right, and the grant amount has been established. So once the low bid has been determined, the state has set the cap on the grant. You got more.
Okay, but
more
had
than-
this change order, this bill for 13.9 that they're adding on to extra fill, not been put in before this meeting, then we'd have been starting with the $80,000 a month, dividing it by 45 people, and that would be a different number. Right? I mean-
It would have had to have been factored in, before this went out to bid. In order
That
to
doesn't
get-
make any sense to me.
Well, Dave, it's not as simple as what you're, so the 13,000 is added, go up, that's all part of the 479, and you add that to the 194, and you add that to the 60 to get 733, then that drives the 619 state number,
Yeah,
So if we would not have had that $13,000 change order, it would have changed all those numbers, and the difference would have been very slight, because the bigger the project costs, the more the state reimburses us.
okay, well, I was under
So-
the impression we had an $80,000 deal and we're splitting it 40 and 40. That's what the meeting before
That
said,
was our
right?
estimate, all the way from the feasibility study in 2015 up to,
Well, that's what we talked about this spring, though.
Opening-
It's 80,000 and 40 city and 40 people.
yeah,
I mean, that's what we talked about
yeah.
and agreed to, I thought.
Ultimately, it's this number here that we're looking at. Is that a relative number? And when we look at what's actually being calculated for the assessment, it's actually lower.
So the first 1,081 was based on 37 people and not the Moen Beach people, and that's how the difference is there. So now we're adding more people and coming up with less.
A less number. But that difference you're saying, the 13, it's not that simple a math. Every number on there is different than it was back when he first did the projections. That was before you had a hard bid, right?
It's before we had a hard bid.
So, and the bid came in different than he projected back when you said it was 80 people, and every number you're looking at is
We had
different
a
than...
hard bid when we approved it earlier this spring and said, let's go for it, right?
We got a contract approved September 11th.
Okay.
Long after the dates you're talking about.
Okay, well, I've spoke my piece, but at some point I'd like to address that.
If it was something that really adversely affected the estimated assessments, that we were looking at before, then, that's something that we'd have to look at harder here. But the benefits really don't change. The cost that we estimated in the beginning to people really hasn't changed. It's actually gone down.
Right, no, I agree with that. But this change order has got to come through the council and approved and then
Yeah,
paid.
so even if it hasn't affected the assessment really at all, that does not mean you should approve the change. That's a different meeting.
Okay,
You might think it's bogus
I'm done.
reasoning and you should deny the change order. Either way, we're going to say, let's assess 1,043,
okay,
because we don't know that's the future. We don't know the future.
we'll wait for another day.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to say don't argue about the 13,000. It's just not really that important for this hearing.
Okay.
Brad, do you have anything?
No, sir. I think it's remarkable that, I know it's still all of our money, but does anybody see that 639 of that is not coming out of state coffers, that just this minuscule little amount to a bridge, to a handful of residences? I mean, let's start building. We were talking about this when I got elected 2 years ago.
Right.
Good Lord. Seriously. Lucky the state came through with the money finally.
Otherwise, it would have been a very expensive bridge for the
Yeah,
city.
exactly. Good Lord, where's, were the hamburgers $12 or $11? I mean, this is what we're down to here.
That's right.
I make a motion that we accept this as proposed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let's have a vote. Is there any other discussion?
I'm good.
All right, let's have a vote.
All in
All
favor?
in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There's nobody negative.
Ready to adjourn?
At this point, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.